Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment of our Reviewed and Ranked series. This has been going on for a couple of weeks now, and if you've missed any of the previous installments, make sure you double back and check those out, as I think you might benefit from the breakdowns that we're doing from these characters if you have happened to miss any of them. As always, if you find today's installment helpful and or enjoyable, please feel free to hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily content as I bring a lot of videos from multiple different games to you on a daily basis. And with that being said, let's jump into today's spotlight and reviewed character, which is Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel is a very fun character to play, and I've had a lot of really good experiences with using her. And it's time for us to have a closer look at how she works as a character so you can make the most of including her on your team. Now, starting off, we do need to talk about the synergies based off of team building that she has access to. And she has access to 5 synergies, which is pretty consistent with some of the characters that we've looked at so far. And it's a pretty well-rounded number of synergies that can be added to the team. These 5 synergies are a resilience synergy that is brought by being a member of the Guardians of the Galaxies, a defense synergy brought by the Generations synergy trait, as well as energy synergies as being a member of the Avengers, a Women of Marvel, and being a team leader. So if you're looking to increase the efficiency of any one of those areas, Captain Marvel is going to fit into your roster very well. So let's go ahead and transition from here to look at the basic attacks that are in Captain Marvel's kit. Now, her standard attack sequence is a series of 4 different punches that she layers out, and they do decently well, of course. They do have the ability to stagger some of the smaller grunt type enemies, so they won't retaliate directly upon layering those attacks into them. Though, as with any boss character or mighty enemy, of course, they're going to be able to shrug off the smaller attacks of this nature. She also has a heavy attack, which in this iteration you are seeing that I actually immediately chain that into her falling aerial attack, as her heavy attack sends her soaring upwards in an uppercut motion, and in a way to maximize your damage output, it is highly beneficial for you to tag on the falling aerial after using that heavy attack. As a matter of fact, you can do so by hitting the exact same button you used to execute the heavy attack, as that will allow you to continue into the falling aerial. And that is highly beneficial because her aerial attack is very useful in a lot of different circumstances, not just when using the heavy attack. I'm also noting here that you can substitute the last hit of the 4-hit basic combo for a heavy attack, and you can then continue to ramp up your damage output using Captain Marvel by chaining the first 3 hits, followed by a heavy attack, and then chained on further with a falling aerial, thus extending her total combo potential to 5 hits, which is very useful. Of course, we need to talk about her traversal abilities, and instead of having a double jump like some of the other characters in the roster that we have looked at so far, she actually has access to a flight mechanic. And this is the first time that we are seeing flight mechanics or additional traversal items. And something that is important to note with characters that can fly is by using the flight, you will be consuming some of your energy points. You'll see that the energy gauge is slowly depleting as she is executing this ability. Though it is a definitely nice trade-off in certain circumstances, as it greatly increases Captain Marvel's maneuverability and the ability to get around a lot of different hazards. Specifically, floor traps and laser grids are done very well. Laser grids not as much as the characters that have double jumps, but certainly the floor traps are a lot easier to avoid if you have a flying character like Captain Marvel on the team. The last item we'll look at before moving over to her abilities is going to be her blocking and dodging animation. This one is pretty standard with what we've seen. It involves a 2-arm cross right in front of her character, and then she will kind of dash or roll out of the way depending on the area of directional input. And that is pretty consistent, but the animations do vary from character to character, with some of them being a little bit more flashy, and we will see that as we get into the remainder of the characters on the roster. So it's finally time for us to talk about her abilities, and that brings us to ability number 1, Photon Punch. Photon Punch is a melee type attack with the Charge Synergy trait, very similar to Captain America's Shield Dash, with of course being slight variations in the overall efficiency as well as the animation for the attack. This sends Captain Marvel rushing forward and unleashing a punch. This is an attack that you can charge up for a few seconds if you use it on your own, but if you do detonate it within a team synergy type environment, it will detonate immediately. And that makes for a very large ground covering attack that is actually pretty decent in most senses of the word. You'll see that the damage ranking is at a C, so not the highest in terms of damage that it could possibly be, but it's decently well on the energy point usage at the rank of C. And where this ability really shines is its stagger ability, where it does very, very well with breaking down the stagger gauges of mighty enemies and boss characters. As you rank up this attack, you will notice that it reduces its energy point cost. It also increases the attack damage, increases the damage done to the stagger gauge, and at its final rank up will have a reduced chance of being interrupted as you carry out the attack. The second ability of Captain Marvel is the Cosmic Burst. Now this one isn't the greatest attack in her arsenal, though it does look quite cool. I very much enjoy the animation that goes on with this attack. This involves a large sphere of photon energy, and it is a radius type attack, and it has a decent amount of coverage, but it is immediate to Captain Marvel specifically. So it's not something that you can aim. It's a decent get off me tool if you have a bunch of characters kind of swarming around you, specifically if those are grunt type characters. And it does have an element of knockback to it for those smaller enemies, and you might be able to notice something of that sort with some of the mighty enemies as well. This attack is instantaneous, well, after a very short charge up period, but this is not one that you have to charge in order to carry out, like the Photon Punch. This will just detonate as soon as you hit that button, whether it be in a synergy format or just on its own. It's an energy type attack, has the synergy trait of Burst, and has C's around the board when it comes to the damage, energy point consumption, and stagger damage ratings. Though as you rank this attack up, it will become cheaper on the energy point required. There will be an increase to the attack damage as well as the damage done to the stagger gauges, and as almost all of the attacks that we've looked at so far, has a reduced chance of being interrupted at the startup of the move. The third ability that we will talk about for Captain Marvel is the Blast Off ability. This is a powerful spinning uppercut, and you will see that reflected in the damage stat, as this has an A-class damage and a respectable C-class stagger, as well as having a decent amount of energy points consumed. Now, something important to note with this ability in particular is because it has that synergy trait launch, and as you're seeing with the animation here, it does send Captain Marvel soaring up into the air, as it is a very high rising uppercut with that melee attack type. And you'll see that I am consistently chaining on the following aerial attack every single time this attack is detonated, and that helps to further increase that damage output, which is already quite substantial. And this is a decent move for depleting some of the stagger gauges. Of course, the Photon Punch is a little bit better at that specifically, but in terms of raw damage, the Blast Off ability, especially when chained in with the falling aerial, does very good things for this character. As you rank up this attack, it, like the ones we have seen before, has a reduced energy point cost, will increase the overall attack damage, will increase the damage done to the enemy stagger gauge, and finally have a reduced chance of being interrupted on startup. And for the fourth and final ability of Captain Marvel, we have a semi-lackluster attack in the form of the Cosmic Beam. As you can see, this is pretty abysmal in terms of the damage and the stagger that it can put out. It's an energy type attack in a beam synergy trait, though it is relatively safe to use in terms of the energy points consumed with that B rating. So if you're looking for some sustained damage over time that you can kind of sweep back and forth over an area, it does have its uses when trying to take out some of the grunt type enemies. It has a reduced energy point cost as it is leveled up, as well as having increased damage attack, increased stagger gauge damage, as well as finally that reduced chance of being interrupted. But as a general rule, I don't really recommend using the Cosmic Beam where you can be avoided, because she has two other very powerful abilities at her disposal in the form of the Photon Punch and the Blast Off. Now, the last item that we need to talk about is her Extreme Attack, and this attack is very unique in its own right in terms of the after effect that it has. It carries out the full scope of the animation very quickly, in terms of it being completed in just over 5 seconds. But as you notice, she enters her binary ignition stage as the attack is started up, and then for a duration of about 12 seconds afterward. And for the longest time, I thought that this was merely just a cosmetic change or something that you saw affecting the character differently. But as it turns out, I did a little bit more testing with this, and during that 12-second interval, you actually have increased attack damage on all of your basic attacks, heavy attacks, and from what I can tell, it even carries over to your abilities as well. So it's highly advisable from my experience to switch over to Captain Marvel after detonating her Extreme Attack or carrying out an Alliance AX attack, in order to maximize the amount of damage that you can get out of her while she's in that binary ignition state and has increased attack damage for that 12-second time frame. But if you want to maximize the amount of damage that you're getting out of her Extreme Attack, then you do want to prioritize detonating this attack while you are right on top of the boss or the group of enemies that you are wanting to have the focus of the attack be on, as she does not correct or move in on the opponent she's attacking and doesn't have a way to alter the course of her attack as it is detonated as some other characters would. But apart from that, it offers some highly beneficial buffs to the character once the attack has been concluded, again for about that 12-second interval. So with everything being looked at for Captain Marvel, that leaves us with where does she fit in to the tier list. And I honestly think that she is a very, very strong character and brings a lot of good things to the team as a dynamic. So I am going to place her in the A ranking, and I'm actually going to replace, or not replace, but order these characters in terms of how they fit within that ranking. And I do believe that Captain Marvel just edges out Captain America in terms of his overall efficiency within that tier. I don't feel like I need to bump Captain America down. He's sitting very, very nicely in the A tier, but I do have to give the edge to Captain Marvel at this time. However, as I was sitting and thinking about it, I am going to retroactively change the ranking that I had for Black Widow. The more and more I'm breaking down these characters and looking at them and looking at their overall efficiency, I can't leave her here in B tier any longer, so I am going to be moving her down to the C tier in my ranking. But I don't foresee myself taking her any lower. She just has a lot of lackluster damage and high energy point consumption on all of her abilities and synergies there. But apart from that, that's all the clarification I'm going to give to that ranking. But what do you think of Captain Marvel's placement on this tier list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What aspects of the character do you really enjoy? And what characters are you looking forward to seeing in this series as we continue through? As always, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And with all that being said, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.